it's Robert Gowan, Mentors4mil. Thanks for tuning in. And we're sitting here at 5th Ranger Training Battalion, and we are so blessed to be able to, and honored to be able to be in this room, in this space and stuff, and with these tremendous professionals. So here with my sidekick, Paul.
Hey, everybody.
And we're joined by our special guest, Jeromy. And Jeromy, we're going to get back into your background. And I don't think I asked you in the very beginning, where is home?
So home for me is sort of all over, right? So I'm an Army brat, born at Fort Bragg, moved around quite a bit. So over my lifespan, I think 8 years at Bragg as a kid. But I've lived Fort Leonard Wood. I lived in England.
England?
Yeah.
Was he a liaison or something?
So my...
Sorry, I got you totally off path, but that is like cool.
Yeah. So when I was living in, where were we? We were at Fort Leonard Wood. My mom was a drill sergeant and met a liaison. So my stepdad was a British sergeant major.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
So mom gets out of the Army, and then we moved to England.
So I totally got that wrong. Wow. So you're a brat because of your mom, but then also your dad, but on a very different way. But the Army part, U.S. Army, was mom.
Both.
Oh.
So my biological dad and my mom.
Wow.
They split. Yeah. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Double stamped.
Yeah. How was it growing up in that house? Drill sergeant too, nonetheless. So 45-degree angle on the sheets and.
Yep. It was, I mean, it was a strict childhood, right? I got two military parents, right? Everything's dress right dress. But there was some benefits, so like used to structure, I was able to perform pretty well in the military, because of that. So that's good.
Yeah, no, I think I was a Navy brat or a military brat, and definitely a strict household, and taught me a lot about proper manners and everything else, and all those things that I think are not always shared across all channels and and other kids and everything. And so I think it set the foundation, and hopefully I did the same thing as a parent to my kids. I wasn't quite as strict, but at least set that foundation to my own children in the same way. So that was the reason then did you go to college right off, or did you go right out of high school in? Is that the reason why you went, is because of the family, or keep the family business going?
Eventually, yeah. So I joined at 25. So I was living in Charlotte, North Carolina, just bouncing around restaurants, right? Yeah. Clanging pans, chopping onions. And I loved it, right? What a rush. And cooking in fine dining gives you like a really good sense of time. Like I always know when 6 minutes is. I'll always know 6 minutes. So you
why 6 minutes?
So that's how long it takes to cook a steak to medium rare in a pan at a 400-degree onion. 6 minutes. So you get a really good understanding of tight spaces and time, right? So that crosses over sometimes. Like being in a striker unit, when I was in 2CR, right? That helped a lot. Being a jump master, right? Time, tight spaces, how you move your body, because kitchens are dangerous. Stuff's hot. They're packed. It's tight back there.
Sharp knives.
Yeah, sharp knives. Sharp attitudes and what's the word? I guess behaviors. But so I was clanging pans, and I thought about it. I was like, I got to do this. Like everyone in my family, grandparents, uncle was in Vietnam, Recondo, SF dude.
Whoa.
The other uncle, Uncle Jimbo, was in the Navy. He retired as a Sergeant First Class in the Navy. So, everyone in my family was in the military. So
wow.
I'm not going to be the guy who stops the tradition.
Yeah, you don't want to break the streak.
Yeah. So that was it. I'll just do 4 years. I say I did it, right, to get my college and get out.
Right.
I'm still sitting here.
How many years later?
So, 16 years?
Okay.
16 years.
All right.
Was it always Army, or was there another option in there when you were deciding which branch you were going to join?
No, always Army.
It's because of your parents?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Knew exactly, right? Army Ranger, go.
Nice.
So you got the option going in, or
I did not. So I was not the best kid growing up, right? So that wasn't an option for me. But I did well in basic training.
Yeah.
I volunteered in airborne school So
Nice.
took that path, and a lot of folks did.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that, because not everybody, and if you go back and listen to one of our earlier episodes where we ended up talking to the guys from Regiment about RASP and how you get in, and there's so many different ways. There's a recruiter and liaison NCOs there at each one of the OSITs and basic and AIT type of situations, or airborne school. If you get an airborne contract coming in, doesn't mean that you still can't get the option, because they can write it, and they'll rewrite the entire contract for those who may be listening. That they just take your existing contract and stretch it out, and they write in option 40 the exact same way. So don't feel like if the recruiter says I don't have any slots, if you get at least an airborne slot, or you do well in one station unit training and or AIT, depending upon your MOS. You still may have that option.
I think if you're the appropriate MLS and you have maxed your PD score and you're smart and you meet the GT threshold in basic and you talk to your drill sergeants, it's a good chance you're going to get that.
Oh, yeah.
A chance to go to, RASP now.
Yeah.
You went through when it was RASP, or when it was RIP? Back when it was hard.
Back in the old days.
when you had to survive, you didn't have to learn anything.
When did you go through RIP?
05.
05, okay.
Yep.
All right.
I went through the year after.
Yeah.
It wasn't much better, I don't think. No.
Okay.
I had been well beyond there. So when did they change it from RIP to RASP? And I should know this because I know we've talked about it in other episodes. But
It was
8, 9?
I think it was later than that. I think it was 10. They probably rolled out in 10, and then were in full swing in 11. And they made a lot of changes in those first few years. I mean, it completely unrecognizable, not just from RIP, but from the first probably 5 iterations of RASP. I don't know how many there have been, but it has changed a lot.
Right. For those who are not tracking, Ranger Indoctrination Program, and then there was Ranger Assessment Selection Program. So just change the name to protect the innocent, but
I think
maybe to differentiate between the hard and...
I think it was a conscious effort to move from indoctrinating people
to selection,
which it was good at, because you were a Ranger when you came out. You might not be skill wise very good, but you were a Ranger. And then they wanted to change it to a real selection process where they're actually teaching you, which makes sense, because now you get a guy that's tougher than nails but doesn't really know how to do his job at all, and honestly, like, you can shoot a little bit better than you did in basic, maybe.
Right.
And now, especially when we got there, you're going every 6 to 9 months, you're going overseas.
Yeah.
So it was interesting.
I mean, you would go through RIP and then show up, and then boom, you're sliding down a rope. It's like, you didn't learn a thing.
Yeah.
Right? But that's okay. You figure it out.
Yeah. Figure it out.
No, I mean, the regiment definitely, they did a very good job with that. It was the right decision. And it was in response, I think, to some of those guys back then. We're talking like 05, 06, right? That had come straight out of RIP and didn't make it back that deployment. And so it was the right response. That, in addition to the charter time thing as well. It's regiment has definitely done a great job in sustaining and stewarding their unit, right?
Oh, most definitely. I mean, we've done several episodes with those guys and what they've created, even since I remember them of the 90s. And for those really old timers that remember, when 3rd Bat was started up and everything else, I mean, they've got stories. And so you think about the history and how far it's progressed, it's pretty remarkable. And to see guys, what's even more remarkable for someone like me is to see guys that's been there 15 years. Mm-hmm. What? That was totally unheard of way back in the 90s. It was, you may get 6. It was the Abrams. They really pushed the Abrams charter to get you out of there and stuff. And but most of the guys would stay 24 months, and I'm like, trying to tow that for 24 months was enough for many of them to just check out. Yeah. So you end up going to 1st, or where'd you go? 1st, what battalion?
3rd.
3rd. Okay.
Yeah.
You guys actually said that before, right? Or talked about that.
Yep.
So was that by choice, or was it the eeny, meeny, miny, mo?
Eeny, meeny, miny, mo.
Okay.
Nice. Yeah.
Nice.
How'd you feel about it? Paul cried a little bit, is why I asked you. He had a tear that rolled down his eye.
A single tear.
I remember reacting emotionally, and the RIP instructor was not very happy about that. Right. But honestly, what a great organization. You know? And that's where I needed to go. Right. So things happen, and that's what happens, right? And that's the intersection. And so 3rd Bat was my intersection. It was where I needed to be at that time in my life, and it was good. It was a good experience. I learned a lot.
Yeah.
I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about the Army. I learned a lot about being a good team member there. And then, what the expectations are, serve in a unit in the Army. It was a good foundation for the rest of my career.
Not just a unit in the Army. I mean, they are an elite fighting force, and what you get a chance to do in that type of unit is to serve with some of the best NCOs. And so, I mean, you're really indoctrinated. And if you can hold the line and earn that beret every day, then, you really are given a tremendous opportunity, like you're describing, to be able to, to be around true professionals.
That's right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
How many years did you end up staying?
2.
Okay. So the 24 months.
Nice.
Yeah. I mean, I got in trouble, and, as you do, right?
Yep.
And so I left, went out into the big Army, and it was an interesting experience. My career has been a very, very interesting experience.
Yeah.
And throughout the whole thing, I love it, and that's why I keep re-enlisting.
Yeah.
And staying. Every duty station, I'm given the opportunity to meet a whole new set of people, right?
Yeah.
And serve with a whole new set of people. And that's the one thing I do like about the big Army. It has its drawbacks. Now that I'm married, it definitely has its drawbacks, right? I'm dragging my family across the planet. But especially as a young single person, that opportunity to interact with so many different leaders and take from them, and then to watch them grow. I look across the Army. Some of my, my platoon sergeant is at the corps level now as a sergeant major.
Yeah.
My first sergeants, they're sergeant majors all over the Army, right?
Yeah.
It's great to watch them grow, and to have taken a little piece from each of them. It's been truly an awesome experience.
Well, I think one of the things that people maybe overlook is that every opportunity that you PCS is that you get a chance to go to restart at 0. Mm-hmm. And you're really almost restarting your career. People don't know you. They don't know where you came from. You're walking in the door. You don't know them. You don't know the dynamics of the unit that you're walking into. Right. Certainly not the platoon or the squad or the company that you're walking in the door to. They may have been together as that unit at that whole, without losing pieces to PCS, 12 months, 18 months. And you're walking in there. And guys instead don't always take that opportunity to really, I think, embrace it and learn from it. And, one of the things we talked to First Sergeant Ryan about is that, that opportunity to really grow. What is it that you're going to bring in value to that organization? And have you really thought about it that way? Or are you just looking at it as, it's another PCS. I got to, that type of thing,
I mean, to me, fundamentally, this is it's a people business, right? We're a people-focused organization. And if you're excited about people, I get excited about people, and for each unit, it's less of the type or structure or the insertion platform that we use to get to wherever we're going, mission set, whatever. When I think back to whether it's Fort Hood and First ID, 2CR and a Striker, 425 being airborne, those things don't matter. I remember people, right? I remember the people, whether it's Harris, in Fort Hood, whether it's Crinky in 2CR, it doesn't matter. It's the people that were there that I was with, and the people I got to interact with, and I was shaped by and molded by, and as I grow in my career, that I shape and mold for the Army, right? And it's just I get so excited. About it. Yeah.
Well, and you're not just shaping them for the Army, though. I think I went out to the big Army too for about a year, and I thought this is going to be terrible, but you realize how excellent where you came from was. Yep. If you've come from Ranger Battalion, and you realize, okay, well, I was there for a little bit longer. I was there for about 7 years, and I got to a point where just being a Ranger was normal. That standard of excellence that they strive for every day was normal, and so if you're middle of the road of excellent, that's pretty great. Yeah. But you stay there long enough, and you're like, I'm just middle of the road in general. And you get out to the big Army, and you're like, oh, okay, I've had the opportunity to learn from these great leaders. Now I get to pass that on to these guys who may never get a Ranger leader because they're in garrison or they're chaplain's assistants or whatever they may be, and then you're getting to mold those soft skills. And it's this is a 19-year-old kid, first time out of the house. And the things that I'm going to teach them, that's as formative as their school years or their, what their parents teach them, when they're in their early 20s or late teens. So it's like, and I still talk to those guys. So I'm like, you get to watch them grow. You know, one of them just got promoted to the rank I got out as. And I'm like, man, that's freaking awesome. You know, and maybe a little bit of what I had to offer as an NCO helped him get there, you know, along with all the other great NCOs I'm sure he's met in the meantime. So it's
100%.
It's just, it's a life thing. It's not just an Army thing. It's really cool.
Yeah. Love it. And like I said, that's what keeps me coming back.
Okay.
Right. That's why I've re-enlisted all this time. It's like, I could get out and, you know, do something else, whatever. That's fine. Sure. And I could interact with people, but I doubt that I would interact with people with the same level of intensity that I do in the Army. You know, just based on, you know, the close quarters, you know, the requirements to stay together and to be the esprit de corps, like, you know, you really build long relationships with people that sort of last a lifetime.
That's an important takeaway that I don't know that a lot of people realize too, is that they're not embracing the moment that they're living in. And that's kind of what you're describing. And I can certainly say from my own experience, I walked out the door after 20 years and said, this is it. I don't want any more to do with it. Yet here I sit doing a podcast, you know, that, you know, is about, you know, helping the community and all that. And it's because exactly what you described. You walk out the door and that people didn't come from the same backgrounds and everything else when you go in a private sector organization. They don't in the military either, except we all become the same background at that point. Again, it goes to the reset. Boom, reset, you know, military service. From that point on, you're like-minded individuals. Now we run into veterans when you get out, and it doesn't matter what branch, what MOS. We don't even hardly talk about that. You know, it's...
Unless they're Coast Guard. I'm just kidding, Coast Guard. You guys are all right.
And then you're gonna, you know, you just have that way of, all right, we're on equal. We understand. We're very like-minded. We come from the same background. And in some cases, I think we're very misunderstood as it relates to the private sector. But we don't also give them a chance to really understand what we're trying to describe. They haven't felt it. They've never done it before. And so because of that, we treat that as an us and them. You don't know what I'm talking about kind of thing. You're not a veteran. And yet, hopefully, there'll be more of us that go out there and try to bridge that divide and actually create that communication. Because everything you're learning, everything you're describing about people, leadership, and everything else are the exact same things you're going to get as an opportunity on the private sector. Yeah. It's just you don't have that same camaraderie. You know, you can build teams. They're just not going to be necessarily the same as what you're describing, you know.
Yeah, I think the way I have it is you know, we serve others, right? I'm in a team, right? And I may be a master sergeant at this time, right? I'm a master sergeant, and I work with a group of other people, but I also serve that team. I have a vested interest in them and their lives. Yep. And then given, you know, the shared danger and hardship that we have, right? So that it's a little more intense, right? So if we work together at McDonald's, right? We're just the crew, you know, cooking burgers, doing fries, you know. We have a vested interest in each other, but it's just not the same, right? Unless like people are shooting at our McDonald's, maybe then then
certain, maybe McDonald's in Detroit or something.
That does happen.
Yeah, that does happen.
So, how did you end up here?
So I was up in 425. I had just finished my platoon sergeant time, and you know, we had just come back from Afghanistan. And I was kind of thinking about, hey, what do I want to do? I was offered a position. I was offered the first sergeant position in the troop that I was in. I was in a Charlie troop, 140th Cav, which I love.
Really?
I love recon. It's so much fun. Okay. So much fun. Because it's just the Charlie troop is a dismounted reconnaissance troop. And it's great. So I was offered that position, and I remember thinking, I don't want to do this yet. I don't want to be a first sergeant yet. Like, I want to grow a little more. One of the first sergeants that was there was an RI here, First Sergeant Kirk, now Sergeant Major Kirk. And he was like, hey, go be an RI. Go be an RI, and go be an RI at 5th RTB. And that's where you're going to develop. And
now, is he at 5th RTB, and that's why he said it?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. He was an RI here, and he said, any RTB you go to, you're going to develop. Right. At 5th, it was his assessment that I would develop the most, and I don't think he was wrong.
Why do you think that is?
So how do I put this politically without? So my brothers, I don't want to talk bad about anybody else, right? So my brothers out in Fourth, I love those guys. They do a great job. And down there's that sign, the not for the weak and faint-hearted, right?
Yeah.
And that's their job, right? That's a big piece of their job is not for the weak and faint. It's to weed those guys out. And the people that need to come up here, come up here. And they teach in a very structured way, obviously. Yes. Like you guys have both been through the course.
No, I have not. Only Paul.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So they do the 20 boards. They teach in a very structured way. When they come up here, we're kind of structured.
Right.
Semi-structured. And I'll get to us last. When we kick them off to 6 is more, they're kind of like OCs, right?
Okay.
Because it's the run phase. That makes sense. Yeah. You know, and so it's more like outcome based, like they're observing, and they do a great job down there. And I'm not taking anything away from 6th, but here, this is where you learn all of this stuff. Like as instructors, I think we have the best instructors on the planet at 5th RTB.
You got a strong argument there. Yeah.
And we've had, folks from, the Special Warfare School come up here and watch us and observe. I think we are the best at what we do, what we teach. And so like I recognize that as a student, and I said, okay, I want to teach. I want to get on a platform and I want to teach that stuff. And also like, the mountainous environment. One, it's beautiful up here, and 2, it's tough, right? It's tough. It's hard to be an RI here. These mountains suck. When it's cold, I'm cold. When it's raining, I'm raining. And, I was cold in Alaska, but, I wasn't cold all the time. And I think I just wanted another hard challenge before, I was tied to a computer and a desk and green and red blocks, let me do something else. Let me develop. And again, I didn't make the right or wrong decision. I made the complete right decision. I feel so much better prepared to go out into the force after being an RI here.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And both in terms of an RI and in being prepared to be a first sergeant.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, your grasp of doctrine has to just be comprehensive at this point. I mean, it's like.
So that's the thing is that we are instructors, but we are facilitators as well.
Okay.
Meaning that when I'm on the platform, I'm trying to have a discussion with the students.
Right.
And so like I can't not know stuff or I lose all credibility, right? And if I don't know something, that's fine.
Right.
I also have to be humble, and just be like, hey, I don't know that, Ranger. Like, and that's okay. And that's where, 5th, is we've always gotten I remember as a student thinking like, it's pretty mature of that guy. Just be like, I don't know, Ranger, whereas maybe in other places like, but I remember thinking, having a lot of respect for those guys for that. And so if you're going to be a good instructor and you're going to be passionate about teaching and facilitating, right, you've got to study. You've got to be ready. I never want to look bad on the platform. I'm a professional. And so like and all of these guys are as well. Ryan, everyone else on this camp. We spent hours just reading doctrine, and we're ready. Whatever the student's question is, I'm ready for it. Bring it. And I want it, right? And I tell them, I'll give you a major plus, like, bring it. Let's do it.
If they stump you?
Yeah.
Nice.
Like, I want it, because I grow and they grow.
Yeah.
And they're invested because no one wants a sleepy class of people who don't care, right? Yeah. I want them. I don't care if they get a go. I care that at the end of the class, whatever I taught them, they understand it.
Yeah.
You pointed out something that I think maybe some people don't understand. First off, there's a difference between coaching and mentoring, but there's also a difference, as you mentioned, and pointed out, teaching and facilitating. Facilitating, you're more of a listener and you're guiding the conversation. It is truly a conversation. Whereas a teacher, you're instructing. And so that's a very different, as a facilitator, you have to humble yourself and you have to speak less on some occasions, right? And be a very good listener. So that's really interesting that you put it that way, because that's a different skill set. So many guys are, they're great NCOs. They're great at instructing. Mm-hmm. They're great at telling, exactly what to do. But when you have to step back and I say, all right, I want you to facilitate this class, some guys don't know what that means. they think that's, I'm going to instruct, I'm going to teach. No. That you're going to guide the conversation to a direction where they're really interactive. They don't even understand they're learning. They don't even pick up that they're learning something. It's an art. It really is. I didn't realize that so much about this. Thanks for pointing that out, about 5th RTB.
Yeah. I mean, we take, you could almost call it Socratic method, right? That would be how we do it. I'm asking questions, they're answering, I'm asking further questions. Like, it's a question and answer sort of dialogue with the students. And then if, maybe I'm not getting the answer, okay, hey, what do you think, right? And we facilitate a discussion amongst the students. And, because peer-to-peer learning is for adult learners, that's the best way.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no doubt. So, we maybe this is a good time to talk about one of the events that recently took place. And for those who may not be aware of it, there was an incident in which there was severe weather here. The soldiers were lost. Some soldiers were also severely hurt. And I want to talk a little bit about how you guys reacted to that situation. I mean, one of the things I think that First Sergeant Dane Ryan talked about was that, everybody really, you talk about coming together. It was an opportunity where this battalion really, the light shined on this battalion. And Paul was a part of the aftermath of this, through some equine therapy. So I want you guys to kind of, since you were a part of it as well, I'd love to talk about the reaction, how the command reacted to it, and the great things that were done, because now that we're in a garrison situation, this is a little bit different for leaders who may not be put in a combat situation where there is an event and you have to now get the team back together, get everybody refocused, including the students as well as the cadre. And it's an important step as a leader.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's difficult, right? So we're, geologically separated from Fort Benning, right? We're up in Dahlonega. It's a tiny town, like in the middle of nowhere.
There's not a lot of resources.
Yeah.
If you're not familiar with Camp Merrill, the footprint's very small, and it has good amenities, and they're fairly comprehensive for the size, but you don't have a big behavioral health.
Yep.
You don't have a hospital. You don't have the ability to inpatient somebody necessarily. And, your medical staff, we got to do some equine work with them, and they were phenomenal. Yeah. So obviously you're in good hands, but yeah, this is a very small, it's an outpost almost.
Right.
It's fobbish.
So maybe expand on that a little bit. Like when people hear equine therapy or what, why and how is it so significant?
So the reason is it's significant, especially for veterans, is because it's not invasive. There's not a stigma attached to it. It's very, and I speak from a masculine perspective because I was in an all-male unit, and to me the Army's mostly men, and that's just kind of how my brain works. But it's a masculine thing to do. You go cowboy some horses, and it's a big animal, it's dangerous, and so it doesn't appear to be therapy in the same way as sitting on a couch and telling a stranger your secrets. And finding a good therapist for you, because there's plenty of good ones out there, but you may not gel with them. It's difficult. I went through 7 different mental health professionals before I found one that I was like, okay, she's not my ideal choice, but we've got good rapport and we can make progress. So all of that is eliminated with the horse, and there's a biological function there. So as a herd animal, they're picking up all these little physical cues, all the body language. They can hear a heartbeat from 4 to 5 feet away. They can smell, the composition of your endorphins and your sweat and the stuff that's coming out in your, in your aroma. So they know if you're afraid, if your heart rate's elevated, they're like, oh, something alerted my herd mate, so now I'm on alert. Or if you come in and you're relaxed, they're like, well, this guy's relaxed and he's looking around, so I don't see anything either. I'll relax. And it's automatic. What's interesting is that the human body mirrors that. And they're doing more studies, but there's a lot of science on this. And you can encounter a horse with an elevated heart rate and it can lower your heart rate. And so you and this animal are starting to mirror each other. So when I heard about you guys having that accident on Mount Yonah, I thought, well, we're coming down to do the podcast anyway. I'll give Colonel Green a call. You know, so I called staff duty because I figured that was a respectful thing to do, and said, hey, here's who I am. If you're interested, give me a call. Logistically, it's going to be a little bit difficult, but I think we can get some horses down to you. And I think it was less than 15 days later. We were under the 2-week mark. I think it was closer to 10 days. We were here. I think we had 12 horses, and we provided equine service for, I think it was 18.
Yep.
18 of your medic staff, and it was awesome. But the biggest thing was the chain of command. You know, I called him up, and then, you know, I got to talk to Colonel Green, and I asked him, you know, kind of what's going on with his guys and if he needed services. He said, well, we got behavioral health, and the Army did a really good job. You know, they sent behavioral health, they plussed up the chaplaincy presence, and they really made sure that the resources that are automatic and available were there. Mm-hmm. And I thought, well, he's probably not going to be interested. He said, no, we'll take anything. If it's good for the soldiers and it passes the common sense test, then yeah, we'll do it. Tell us what you need us to do. Oh, I'm like, well, just stand by, let me find some horses, because there's a fast turnaround, a big ask. So I was really impressed. I don't think if I had called up when I had gone through and I talked to Sergeant Major Frogger, who recycled me in mountains, if he's listening, thank you, and probably needed that. You know, he was a sergeant major, and it was 2007. You know, I mean, he probably been like, "Yeah, that sounds like some hippie bullshit." You know, they can go talk to psych or whatever they need to do. You know, just because generationally, culturally. Yeah. So that was sort of what we were looking to do with Equine Immersion Project.
Yeah. And that's important. I'm glad you just said the name of it. And there is an organization out there that you guys can check out and everything. They have social media. You can find their website. It's really good organization.
Yeah, eiproject.com is the website. And EI Project, you can find us at EIP, EI Project at any of the social media platforms.
Yeah.
And so we're mobile.
So from your perspective, seeing it from this side, now you heard it from Paul's perspective and why they felt like bringing it in. How did you guys look at it, you know?
So first, I thought, you know, the Sergeant Major in BC, you know, excellent job, right? And BMOC came up, supported us with some...
BMOC is...
Oh, I'm sorry. So behavioral health from Martin Army Community Hospital.
Okay.
So they came up, and that was great, right? We had them immediately on station to support both, you know, cadre and students. You know, the 75th reached out, right? They gave us our 2 chaplains back. So nice. Chaplain Bryce Wiltermood, our mutual friend. Yeah,
I didn't know he was a chaplain now.
He's a chaplain.
Holy smokes!
I think RMIB.
Wow. Yeah. Badass.
And then our one that just left, Chaplain Joe Kumar, he came back, right? And then, because our current chaplain, Chaplain Cardenet, he was in airborne school, so we didn't have any on the ground. So they gave us, you know, the 75th, sent those 2 up. They sent...
That's awesome.
They sent their psych up here as well, Major Simonette, which is good, right? And they're investing in, I mean, you got to think, what, 30%, 40% of our customer base is their people. Right? Mm-hmm. So they sent her up. She hung out for a couple of days and provided services to all the students and some of the cadre as well. So, I mean, you know, that response from Fort Benning was just amazing. Equine Immersion came in, and you know, that was an awesome project. I don't think there was a time when anyone was like, this is dumb. You know, that doesn't seem to be. Yeah, thank you. I think we've moved past that. You know, at least at our where we're at now, this cohort in the Army of sort of E8s and E9s. I mean, you know, Sergeant Major Blackshear has his own, you know, experiences with behavioral health. Colonel Green has his own experiences, you know, behavioral health. I have mine. You know, the unit let me leave, you know, to go to a 4-day, you know, suicide prevention program, which was amazing. There was no questions asked.
That's awesome.
They've done it for anyone who was asked, right? So anyone that's been here, and I think there's been a few that have gone off to different programs, like, hey, pull them off the schedule, send them. Like they are, I think the Army has turned the corner as far as like supporting, supporting soldiers' needs. And that's great. at least here, but this is unique.
Yeah.
It's a unique population. And I haven't been back out in the force yet, but you've got to, you're talking, 1% of the Army is here, So maybe the rest of the Army looks like that. But it doesn't matter because as we, serve here and move out,
Right.
To the force, we bring that with us. And that was why, one of the reasons why, for Sergeant Major, it's like, hey, this is also NCOPD, right? This is how you do this. This is how you take care of soldiers when something like this happens.
That's excellent.
Which is great because, it's easy. The easy button is, hey, people die in combat, go, right? Yep. Send it. But that's not, this is completely different context, right? Yep. We're in training. This shouldn't happen here.
Well, I might disagree with you there because I think that, and I think that's what people don't always realize is some of these jobs in the military are so dangerous. I mean, absolutely dangerous. There's a risk of death for what we did this morning. I mean, it was extremely dangerous. We had the best cadre in the world in great gear, so all that's mitigated, but those things still happen. I mean, you're in the mountains and you're in perfect conditions to suffer from exposure, hypothermia, any number of ailments, or you just slip on a wet rock and fall down a ravine. It could happen and you're just walking down a trail on a Tuesday up here. So it's, I think that there could still, if your chain of command wasn't as forward thinking and wasn't as invested in their people, they could easily say, hey, this is a dangerous job. Accidents are going to happen. Lives will be lost. You guys reacted appropriately.
Yeah. Move on. Yeah.
Yeah. Here's your psych.
Yeah.
Good luck.
And that would have been the old Army. But I think you bring up a very valid point. Because war went on for 20 years, you have senior NCOs and officers today that didn't deploy just once. They deployed multiple times. They lost men. They lost, teammates and everything else. They experienced it either third party or, a unit over here did, and like a regiment did, let's send, reinforcement, let's do what we need to do. And so they, everybody's now understanding what that means. I think that kind of stuff has to be passed on. Most importantly, to a garrison, you think about the young people that are coming up in that garrison type of, we're not in war type of environment. They're not going to be exposed to how do I take care of my soldiers in that way, because you guys had the experience from combat and realize the importance of it and how people compress, and it's not good, And in your case, like you said, your own experience.
Absolutely. I mean, and I think, if you look at most of the people my grade, or higher, I mean, we have a trail of suicide victims behind us.
Unfortunately,
and it's just the reality. It's like, hey, this is terrible, and it's got to stop.
Well, it's
where,
and in most cases, and it's probably true for you, I would guess, it's more guys that I know that have died of their own hand than have died in combat.
That's right.
That's right. That's a factual number. Yeah,
by a large margin.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I think it's more than double.
Yeah,
almost triple. And you're exactly right. That cannot happen.
Yeah, and
so I just. That was one of the reasons I had so much impetus to reach out to 5th Ranger Battalion is because, 75th is the standard bearer of the Army, and I don't know if, the RTBs project that as much or have internalized that, but this is the small units leadership school. This is the standard for the Army, and really for, I think, the entire military in the United States. I don't think there's a better small unit course. The Marines may have some good sergeant courses and stuff. I know they're good. But I don't think it's like this. I don't think anything is like this. And all these, your your support guys, they're getting the best tutelage from the best NCOs. Those guys are going to go, they're either going to get out or they're going to go on to do great things in the military. And the fact that they got to see the Army's response in action and the resources available and a chain of command that's like, take everything they're going to give you. And then they also got to see, Equine Immersion Project come in and say, hey, we've got a multi-state organization. We've got people locally and from afar that have come here to support you because this the community that you're fighting for, that you're serving, we're also here for you. And you're not just dealing with this alone. This stuff that happens behind the fence or on the cantonment area or overseas, yeah, that's yours to carry, but you can come back, and the people in your community, we want to share that burden with you. We want to alleviate some of that weight. And so, you know, everybody that got to participate in that program or see that it was happening, and it's quite a few people, they're all going to go on to do more, and they're going to be leaders. I mean, that's just the nature of this place. And they're going to know, well, you know, if the Army doesn't have it, or it's insufficient for my needs because everything's unique, I can reach out to my community, and there are going to be resources there. And if I support them as a leader, then my guys are going to do better. And so it was an incredible, a terrible event, but an incredible opportunity. And I'm just really, really profoundly impressed that this unit just rose to the occasion. It was like, yeah, take care of my soldiers. Don't care how you do it. Take care of them. I'm like, okay, that's a big, big change.
And what was interesting, you know, so, you know, there's obviously logistics, the nuts and bolts, like how do you connect these two organizations together? Yes. And you know, that was important, like getting that rep in, right? So it's like, whether it's with equine immersion, okay, how do we pay for this, right? Like, what's the funding mechanism? And so it's like, well, let's use 75th, I think was the ones that funded it, right? And so it was 75th, and there's a foundation up here called On Point 11 that's run by an old school ranger. He's a plank holder from 175, if I'm not incorrect. Art Attaway. Yep. Art. And Charlie Rock helped out. They sent Wes Gerina, who was he was down in Florida in 95. When those guys
look at all the things that you're describing there of how many people came together in a moment of crisis to make sure in and out of the military to take care of the community.
I mean, the Georgia Equine Rescue League paid for all the horses, you know, because EIP will accept volunteers, you know, of course, but for the most part, we want professionals, and it's going to cost money. And the reason is because the most sophisticated and excellent piece of equipment and the most expensive piece of equipment that's irreplaceable in the military, it's the men and the women that serve.
Human capital.
You wouldn't take your $25,000 sniper rifle and night scope and say, hey, anybody want to volunteer to try and fix this thing? I'm about to go overseas. There it is. There we go. Let's retreat. All right.
Wow, haven't experienced that in quite some time.
Yeah, welcome home, buddy. There you go. I don't think I've heard that in a long time either.
Yeah, that's the loudest microphone in the Army.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, you guys have some serious speakers here.
What's crazy, that thing is, I think it's designed for like forehead, you know, because it's so loud.
The Army just has one gigantic one with an NSN number on it, and I'll send it anywhere.
I hope you guys can hear this.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you can hear it in your headphones.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's loud. That's super loud.
We'll wait till it goes by.
But yeah, you can hear it up in the mountains.
It's so freaking cool. I think you guys might have upgraded since I've been here.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Because you moved the flagpole too, I think.
That's right.
It was closer to the building. Yeah.
For yourself, how was that? The therapy and stuff like that was being. Did it help you in your own personal situation, or were you still kind of removed from it, where you weren't able to even get some effect from some of the equine therapy? I didn't know if you got a chance to go through some of that yourself personally.
No. So we left that to the medics.
Okay.
Right. That's probably that's the most vulnerable population, right? They're the youngest, guys out there, the least experienced, and they're being asked to do something. That's their job, but also like for PFCs, like that was a lot, right?
Huge.
Yeah. And so like, hey, let's get that to them. And again, I think it's important, right, to highlight like getting that, like as NCOs and officers, how do we do this? How do we take care of soldiers, right? Because it's not easy. It's surprisingly difficult, right, to move all those pieces together. And whether it's equine immersion or where they're at now, they're up there up in Camp High Harbor up in Altoona in Georgia.
Oh, cool. They're doing a retreat, right?
Doing a retreat up there. Yeah. So they're up there for 2 days, and that cost a ton of money, and it took moving resources around and connecting with various, civilian organizations and NGOs to make that happen. And it's a complex process, and navigating it at least we've done it here, and now I understand the process, right? So God forbid something ever happens. Like, I know that I can reach out to an NGO. I know the means how to do this, right? Wherever I'm going to be, I know that there are VSOs out there that are way more than willing to help, right? Whether it's EIP, like there are countless VSOs out there just waiting for the opportunity to help.
Yeah.
Thousands and thousands and thousands of them. And there's a lot of resources, like as far as, the pragmatic stuff, like money. I mean, it's out there and it's available. And I think that what everybody kind of zooms in on when they talk about suicide or PTSD or, even MST, is like, well, what's the solution? As if there's a pill or a bullet. And the answer is there isn't a solution. And there isn't a one size fits all. And the idea is that, especially for my part, this is why I enjoy the equine side of things, I can introduce you to a healing modality that doesn't require you to take a pill and doesn't require you to talk to a stranger sitting on a couch, and doesn't take up a lot of your time in the sense that you got to like go to this office and sit in this room and have this meeting with this person. You do something enjoyable outside with your friends. But it's that it shows you that what you thought was the way, which is, pills or, abstinence from alcohol or just going to church all the time. Like there's other ways, and you can find them and try them. And if it doesn't work, that's okay. You probably still got a benefit out of it, but it gives a lot of people the impetus to try something new and continue to seek that healing. And I always say, like, I like horses because it shows people the first steps on the path to healing. And sometimes that path is all horses. For me, that's kind of how it was. I do talk therapy and stuff like that too. But for others, they're going to see that and they're like, well, it didn't help me, but it helped my buddy. And I like dogs, or I like boats, or I like whatever else it may be. Maybe they like talk therapy, or maybe it gives them, the will to keep seeking a therapist that's gonna click with them and be able to provide some good services.
I think you bring up, a good point, and it's, 10 years ago, it's been completely unacceptable. Like 10 years ago, if I told people like, yeah, man, I wake up in the morning, I do about a half hour of yoga, then I meditate for 20 minutes. People are like, are you crazy? Like, what are you doing right now?
When do you have time to deadlift and eat bacon?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's like, yeah, but okay, fine. That's what I need to do, right? That's what I have to do in the morning, right? That gets me ready for my day. And that way I can be aware and in the moment and present. And the Army has developed an app. Like there's a mindfulness app. It teaches,
no joke.
Yeah.
I didn't even know about this. Well, you got to tell us about this.
There is an Army
mindfulness app.
The Army has developed, TRADOC has developed a mindfulness app. It'll teach you mindfulness, a series of steps, right? I mean, it's kind of Army-ish, right? But
Oh, I'm sure.
Yep. They made a mindfulness app.
Wow. Well, first of all, the Army made an app.
Yeah.
So let's
celebrate that for a second.
Just enjoy that incredible accomplishment. Welcome to
and the purpose behind it, again, it shows and demonstrates just how far the Army has come in such a short time frame. And it's because they recognize that, people are important. Human capital is important and stuff. And back in the day, it was more of just, I can just rotate and find another one, type of thing. And we all deal with it. Suck it up, type of thing.
I think, if I'm honest, I think it's a lack of understanding, right? And so, and really a shifting in perspective. And the way I think of it now is, back in the day, you would think, hey, I have to apply stress. I need you to be able to perform under stress, and I need you to be able to do that all the time, right? And so you would just constantly apply stress to soldiers. You're screaming at them, smoking them, whatever, right? Constantly keeping them this high level of stress. So when stress does occur, right, they've proven that they can deal with it. But I think we find now, right, that soldiers are far more capable if they're mindful. If I'm not freaked out and elevated, my amygdala is the size of an orange, right? Like my reptile brain. And the way that I think of it is when I watch a Ranger platoon when they first get here, right? Do I want a Ranger platoon where I tell them they have to do 5 things and they all get in the center and start yelling and running around all over the place and get nothing done, and I have to insert myself into the situation and fix it for them? Or do I want the platoon that leaves here where I give them 5 things and they quietly go about getting it done? Now they have individual purpose, and they just make it happen. You can tell very good ordered units by how quiet they are as they accomplish their mission, how much guidance has got to be given, right? Because I should be able to look at you and just be like, right? And then we know, you know what that means. Yeah. We're all sitting in office, a mission comes in, and then I'm sitting there, I'm Big Sarge, and you just look at me, and then you leave. Nothing is said, and you know exactly what to do, right?
Yep.
That's a good organization. A bad organization is we're all sitting in the office, the mission comes in, and we all start yelling at each other, right? That's a terrible organization. So why would we train people to act like that all the time?
That makes sense.
Oh man, I love. I could go down this conversation for so long because, you know, even in the private sector, in my company that I belong to, where we talk a lot about, because I brought it to the table, commander's intent. And as long as everybody understands commander's intent, you know, then everybody now knows how it aligns. I know where true north is now. I know where I'm supposed to go, what the direction is. I've just got to make sure I align everybody towards that. And I know what that vision, what that strategy is. Now I got a tactical exercise here that I got to, you know, participate in, and my role in that to make that work and be successful. And that's something, like, we go back to the very beginning. It's not always embedded in the private sector. We're not taught management leadership courses the way the military is, right? And this is one of the best courses out there as well to do that in. But yeah, I think what you're talking about is you get to that sense where you're really a cohesive team, understanding commander's intent, what the vision is, and everybody has a role. And you're trying to teach that also right here through the course.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
In a short amount of time, really.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about how mindfulness has helped you, because I've experienced, like you've described, that frantic feeling where you're like, I've got shit to accomplish. And, you know, it was later in my career, and I, you know, the baggage had started to pile up, you know, the personal stuff and the stuff from overseas or whatever. And, you know, my stress threshold was just zero, you know, like as soon as the stress entered the chat, I was like, all caps, you know, just, and you ranger through, and it's okay, and it works,
right?
You know, and it's effective, although it is not the most effective, and it's not sustainable.
No.
So what's the difference for you can you describe mindfulness and how that,
so the way,
contrast to like before you started doing this regimented morning routine?
Yeah. So I was really struggling with the concept of being integrated, right? And so I'm at work, I'm Master Sergeant Cummings, right? Okay. At home, I'm a father to my children. I'm also a husband, and then I'm also Jeromy, right? So I'm 4 different people, and integrating those 4 different people is difficult, right? And it completely robs you of all your vitality if you're trying to balance 4 different personalities, right? So mindfulness helps me just be me, present in the moment, right? Just present. Doesn't matter. I have no expectations of like, hey, I have to be this guy to you, right? I have to be Master Sergeant Cummings to you. I can just be in the moment with you. And I'm not nervous. You know, I'm a little nervous because I'm on a podcast, but everybody's nervous. I'm not like freaking, you know, I'm not like freaking out. You know, I didn't pace around like, you know, prior to, you know, sort of going, you know, starting these practices, right? I probably would have freaked out and paced around and came in here all crazy, right? And it's like, why? There's 2 dudes and some microphones, right? Like,
so we oughta, that should be our tagline, man. 2 dudes and some microphones. I'm sorry.
I like that.
It was a song. What is it? Never mind.
That was a video. That was something else. Dude. If you're laughing along, you need Jesus.
But you know, my wife, my whole family is so much happier, right? It's just like I don't have to be 4 different people. I don't have to feel like I need time for me to be Jeromy. I can just be.
What you just said, though, is the challenge for most people who went to deployment, had a tough go, come back. They don't have the opportunity to decompress, and they run into the 4 people that they have to be, that everybody's expecting them to be, whereas they were only 1 in that situation.
Oh, life's so much easier downrange. I just got to be 1 dude. I just got to be 1 dude. Yeah. That's it, right? And I have a sole purpose.
Yeah.
You know? it's difficult. You come home and it's not like it was. Like, it's not after World War II or we're riding on a ship back for a month and we're in a container, a closed space where we work through our stuff together. But, we also can't lock people in a container in Arifjan, like stay here and decompress for a minute. It's not, it's not going to work. It's just the modern society. It's difficult. You ask people to be a warrior, right? And then come back. All right. 24 hours later, hey, stop being a warrior.
Yeah.
And people will say things like, hey, you guys just got to learn how to turn it off. Okay. What does that mean? Like, great. Elaborate.
Yeah.
What does it, turn it off? What does that mean?
That's excellent. I like your response to that. I haven't heard that, but I have thought that very vaguely, like what is that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Just turn it off. It's interesting.
So the Greeks had an interesting way of doing this. So Labyrinth, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Labyrinth. So it's not a maze. You walk in one way, you go in the center, you come out the same way that you entered.
Right.
Okay. So what they would do is they would walk in their armor. They would, along the way to the center, they'd stop and say some random stuff to some people or whatever, get to the center, take their armor off, lay their sword down, and then leave out of the center and become whatever they declared themselves to be.
Wow.
Right?
I did not know that. I thought that was just mazes, so.
Go in there a warrior, and you come out a farmer or whatever it is you're supposed to be, because they realized that they needed something, some ritual. We're narrative ritual creatures, right? And that's what they used. A labyrinth. So
But
they came out, they walked in as a warrior and came out as a farmer.
The way they did that, though, in that they explain that, and it's a known thing, so that it helps your therapy, it would sound like, because it's like, all right, you're giving me a passage or a path by which I can morph or shed.
Yeah.
Yep.
And we don't. Wasn't it somebody who mentioned something like this on one of the episodes around how the Native Americans used to treat, post-war, post-combat type of thing, and that they would go through a ritual.
Yeah.
And as a warrior type of ritual or something, it was very, if memory serves me correctly, and I'm sure somebody's going to contact me and tell me the right way, but I thought it was some type of ritual that is basically to do the same thing. I think it's one, to acknowledge you're a warrior, but then to help that healing,
Right.
And that break.
So it's time to stop being a warrior, right? They do a very good job of integrating us. I'm sure.
Oh yeah.
You remember, like, everyone who went to Honor Hill. You can close your eyes. I can still see it, right?
Oh yeah.
Fire, the whole ceremony.
Oh yeah.
I don't remember the entire
grog.
ceremony. The grog. Yeah. You can remember it. I can still feel.
I can smell
moment,
it,
right?
Like I can smell it,
because
that early Georgia morning.
Ritual is powerful.
Oh yeah.
But we don't do a good job when we get back. Oh, and maybe, we don't know what we don't know, right?
Right.
So that I'm not blaming it. I'm not making anybody wrong for it.
No, well, we didn't know. I think we didn't know that, one, it could be done or should be done. And, at the same time, needs must. We're deploying so quick, especially in regiment, but the entire military was deploying so much. It's like, just get to work, because there was so much to be done and so few people to do it, I think.
It's the same thing when they get out of the Army, though, right? The look at the ceremony to become an infantryman, and then the ceremony to retire. Ceremony to retire feels way more like, here's an AAM.
Yeah.
Than Honor Hill with fire at night, drinking grog with your friends.
And like being welcomed, and like welcome into the club, the sacred blue cord of the infantry,
Exactly.
and you're like, fuck, I get to put this on.
And then when you get out, like, hey, here's this.
Yeah, here's a letter from a president.
This doesn't feel the same, right? It doesn't have the same sort of vibe.
Yeah. Well, and if you don't retire, you don't get anything. You get your ETS award, maybe, if you write it yourself.
Yeah.
Very often. And then you get your letter from the president and your flag, and on you go. There's no ritual.
There is a retirement ceremony that I didn't attend because I just felt like, all right, I'm done with, bring your weapon, bring your unit 2 or whatever. And I just that's the flashback or the whatever memory that I had. And I didn't even want to hear about it. It's like, no, if it's an option, then I option out, type of thing. But you're right. There isn't a true, we spend so much money take so much time to develop and mold individuals into whom we want them to be in the military. You know, the type of soldier, airman, whatever, sailor and stuff, Marine, and then it's time for you to go. And what's worse is when you get medical discharge, and it's like hey, you're out 30 days, and you were still in the process, not even really wrapping your head around it, and boom, all of a sudden, you just came off a deployment, you're injured. You got to find a job now. And especially if you're married, you got bills to pay. You're the 4 people before you left. You're the 1 person now, and you come back and you're trying to be the 4. And it's like, it's too much.
Well, and there's this new thing where you've got the warrior transition units, or maybe they're warrior transition battalions now. But, if you're in need of a body at your unit and one is hurt, you send it to the WTB or WTU.
Well, that's worse because.
And now you're in a unit you didn't integrate with, and
those are not
placed back home.
I don't know how those are now, but those weren't that good. Don was a commander of one of those.
Some are good, some are bad. I remember the first one on Fort Benning was my good buddy James Webb.
Yeah,
we were good buddies then. He broke every bone on the right side of his body in a motorcycle accident, which I was there for. I wasn't riding on the same motorcycle that time, and. I had to sleep in his barracks room at the WTU while I was in sniper school because the cadre there were a bunch of National Guard guys and not the best NCOs at all. They're probably the worst NCOs I've ever encountered. They were trying to beat him up. If guys weren't towing the line and, doing stuff that they asked them to do, which a lot of it was very unreasonable, they'd soap you, like socks and soap. And there was one morning I was up getting ready to go to sniper school because I had to wake up just a little bit earlier than their people had to for their formation. And there's a knock on my buddy's door and then a key in it. And they come in and I was up and I was in uniform. Thankfully, it's a Ranger all over my shit. And they're like, what the heck's going on here? And I'm like, well, what are you guys doing here? And they're like, well, we came to talk to James Webb. And I was like, I know what you're here for. And they're like, well, I'm like, I had my cell phone. I'm like, I can call regiment right now. Or you guys can come in here and try to do what you need to do, And they're like, oh, we just wanted to give them some paperwork and blah, blah, blah. We must have left it in the office and they took off. And this is a 100% true story. And I was like, all right. So I woke my buddy up. I'm like, you might want to get the fuck out of the barracks. And then I went off to sniper school. But that's how I attended sniper school. I slept in the WTU barracks on the floor next to my buddy because he was in danger.
I would like to think that we've advanced beyond that, right? I mean, that was
Well, I think by and large we have, but I mean, as recently as last year, I was helping a soldier who was in a very, very similar situation. And it wasn't just him, it was many of his soldiers as well. He was a platoon sergeant. And the treatment that they were receiving was, you'd think these guys had earned a ticket to Gitmo. I mean, these are people who would vocalize, they had suicidal ideation or a suicidal attempt or a self-harm attempt. And their response was to take this guy, put him in a red jumpsuit, lock him in a room in the hospital for an indeterminate amount of time until whatever behavioral health professional they could scrounge up could show up. Sometimes it was 24 hours. Sometimes it was longer. Sometimes they'd hold them longer anyhow. And you're in an orange jumpsuit. You're being watched like on fire guard or suicide watch by guys from your unit, like not your battalion, your platoon. So you might be a PFC who's just getting your dick kicked in by specialist asshole. And now that guy's locked in a room with you and you're in a jumpsuit and he's in his uniform and you're fucking waiting for somebody to make time to come and take care of your mental health. I mean, it was just atrocious. I mean, Secretary of the Army, his office got involved. I mean, there was an IG investigation that started and then was stopped, and it was like toxic leadership to the core. That was very, very recent. And I would believe, because I've kind of kept an eye on who's in charge of that unit, I don't think anything's changed at all.
That's very
at that unit.
Yeah.
But I think that is more isolated than it used to be. Much, much more.
Yeah, I mean, with the advent of, you look at SMAP.
What's SMAP?
So that's where, it's the senior
Like a military advisor?
I forget the exact acronym.
Stumped him with an acronym.
That's right. Nice. You get a major plus.
Major plus.
Sergeant Major Assessment Program.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and the commanders have a very similar one as well. Right. So they go off to Fort Knox, right? If you're going to go be a nominative sergeant major, and I think they'll drop it down probably to the battalion level. But basically, like, you go do some PT tests, you do some psych evals, you do some interviews. We find out like who you really are.
Wow.
You do some psychological assessments, and so they're a lot more stringent. I mean, some people are going to slide through, right?
Right.
Like,
right. It's a human system. That's how it goes.
Right. But I mean, overwhelmingly, it seems to be. They seem to like it. The other thing that the Army's instituted is the Project Athena. So as we get ready to fleet this thing out. So right now, it's if you go to a NCOES system, right? I'll recommend 5 people to rate me on my leadership qualities. They'll fill out a survey about me. The intent is that instead of me picking, it's just a random selection, cross section of my organization that I'm in charge of.
Oh wow!
Hey, you 5 people, you will rate this dude, and he will never know who put it out.
Oh wow! Do you get to see those ratings?
From my understanding, is you get to see the roll up, the assessment.
Okay.
Right. And it's like, hey, this is where you're strong. This is where you're weak.
Okay.
Here are a couple of comments.
So they kind of take it and.
Yep.
I've been through this, not in the military, but out. It can be brutal.
Yeah,
It's an eye opener exercise that really allows you insight into how your peers, excuse me, as well as your subordinates,
Wow.
View you, and you may be much higher on yourself than the way they perceive you.
That's right. Wow. And you see this too. I've seen this with, sometimes you see it with subordinates where they've got like imposter syndrome. Like, oh, I'm not a good squad leader. It's like, no, you're a great squad leader. And they don't believe it, right?
Yeah.
And maybe this, hey, you are a good squad leader. Like, this is what your results say. Or maybe you're a bad squad, like you're saying. There's a lot of that too, right? Like, I'm a great squad leader. Like, not really, dude. And it takes this thing. Hey, the Army said you're not a good squad leader, right? So
I don't know what the program is that you're talking about, but what I was describing, I think, is around the fatal flaws, because that's part of what they introduce to you, is what they determine are your fatal flaws. I don't know. Is it similar? No. Okay.
I've
So they call the fatal flaws of those things that, some may not be correctable, but they should be. And those things, those traits or behaviors that you're bringing that you need to actually correct because they are career-ending, fatal flaws kind of things. You need to work on that skill set. You need to work on changing your behavior this way. You need to, people see you as this type of leader and not as this type of leader, because in your test you said that you're this type of leader, but your people are saying you're this type.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. Yep.
So it might be the similar type of curriculum. It's just in a different type of format. But, I wish that kind of stuff actually could be more widely used within all, branches and everything. But you're saying it's going across now all NCOES, or just at the highest senior level?
So I did it in MLC. They are doing it in SLC as well now.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Well, that's great.
It's almost like a different way to do peers.
Yeah. No, it
that's
is.
very
It's like a
similar to how
360.
Do you do peers here, where at the end, and I'll explain it because not everybody is familiar, but one of the ways that one of the things you have to do to pass Ranger School, you have to pass peers. And at the end of each phase, your team or squad, they're going to evaluate you. And everybody in that squad is going to essentially be ranked in order. And if you're at the bottom, alone, if you're not tied at the bottom because there's 2 shitbags, or tied at the bottom because there's 2 people they don't want to get rid of, you're going to recycle. And if your peer's bad enough, you're dropped. Yep. At least that's how it was. That's how I remember it.
Yeah,
It's the top and the bottom, right? You recognize who is it you'd want to go to combat with, and then who is it you'd like to leave behind.
Yep.
Exactly. And I think it's highly effective. I mean, they've never been wrong in my experience. as I went through the different phases here, I'm like, oh yeah, those guys are the turds. And I am the most motivated shitbag you're gonna in this squad. And that was my peer.
Yep.
I was there frequently.
Yeah. Well, so what's next? First sergeant somewhere? What's the?
I'm gonna go off to Hawaii.
Oh, another person going to Hawaii. What's the deal? You got a chain going on here of that's awesome, man. Yeah. Somebody pulling you across, or because that's two NCOs, senior NCOs, both going to Hawaii.
I mean, so if you serve as an RI, like you're going to be at the top of your groups, right? It just is what it is. So, as we go into the EMC cycle, I think I rated them both Hawaii slides top 2. Ryan put him up there as well. So we're going to Hawaii.
That's awesome. So
and you guys will be together there as well, or
no, he's going to a different battalion.
Okay.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Gotcha.
I was going to say same battalion, but just different, companies or what? But you're going to different battalions altogether then.
Yep.
Okay. When do you leave?
Same time he does.
Oh man, too nice.
Yeah, we showed up together. We're leaving together. We went through the the RITEP process together, me and Ryan. So it's good people.
Yeah, did it start all in this room here that we're in?
Right here.
Yeah. So as I understand it, this is where you guys really teach Ranger instructors, or at least the classroom instruction portion of it, right? To get them ready before they have to stand in front of people. And even before that, you have them mock that. But I mean, this is kind of where it starts, class starts.
That's right. Yeah. So right in here, we learn all of our doctrine. You go through 3-90, you go through infantry platoon, you're going through op terms and graphics. Like you do a lot.
Wow.
You do a lot in this room. And then we get ready to pitch the operations order, which is critical, right? Because once you understand operations order, specifically step 3, like everything else sort of opens up. Like once I can make a detailed plan, I can teach ambush and raid all day. And that's what we bring when we leave here too. So like TLP instructors go out into the Army, right? We're supposed to be doing the TLPs, but
it's easy to shortcut that.
It's easy.
It's very easy.
So we're able to bring that back to the force. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
It's almost like your own Abrams charter where you're, just refining and learning to the point of the closest possible human perfection. And then you take it out to the rest of the force.
That's right.
I mean, your purpose here is to teach students, and that's why you have to have that proficiency. But the benefit of not just the students that leave here, but the cadre that leaves here is just, I think it's a little undervalued. By and large. I mean, I'm sure the Army invests in this school, and they take care of you guys and make sure you're staffed properly. So I don't think it's the Army side, but.
No, I mean, and anyone that's served under an RI, like I've served under RIs before, and it's like, oh my God, that guy is awesome, right? Like just knowledge wise, I've always had great experiences with RIs.
Yeah, except for that guy that remembers you and has a flashback and going, oh my gosh, our first sergeant's the RI,
That's right.
Dude, I don't know, man. If you can remember your RI's names for more than like a month after you're done with school, like. You were getting too much sleep or something. I don't remember. I do. I barely remember my class number. I'm pretty sure I got it wrong.
Well, you recycle. You probably have 2 of them. You just don't remember the right one. So I will give you a secret, though, because one of the things that we've heard so much from the people when they found out that we were coming here is take the recipe with you, the blueberry pancakes. There seems to be a hit. So if you know how to make them, then, you're going to be a golden for those who went through here.
That's right.
Something about 5th RTB and blueberry pancakes.
Right.
They go hand in hand.
Yeah.
So.
No. I mean, honestly, you come back and they're really not that.
Good.
Really, yeah, I mean,
They're kind of that.
But when you're starving to death, like you got to eat. Right.
Yeah. I agree. I think we've been told, we asked about the blueberry pancakes yesterday, and they don't always make them and everything else, and it was it's okay. I can go home without blueberry pancakes. So,
if we got some time, I'd like to. So I went to a veteran suicide program.
Yes.
Right. I'd like to kind of hit on that.
Oh, absolutely.
Was this an NGO or was this a military thing? Okay.
Yep. So I went to the Save a Warrior Project
up
in Ohio, and great. Great experience.
Not heard of them. Okay, that's great.
You get a chance to talk to Jake Clark. He's the founder up there, or Adam Carr. He's I think co-founder of it. Like those guys are great. And I'll tell you that program saved my life. Absolutely saved my life.
Tell us a little bit about what it was, what you experienced through that process, or is it something that'd rather keep, high level, at least, what you can expect?
I can talk about some of it. So it's structured in a way that it's almost like a selection, right? So if you go to selection, if you give pieces of it away, you're not going to get an accurate assessment.
That makes sense.
Okay.
But yeah, if I wouldn't want to rob anyone's experience. But I'll tell you, it was, normally people go off to these things. It's like, oh, how was it? And Sergeant Drew, he was like, worth it? Guess not. Like, no, profound experience. Like
really
up there with having kids. That's how profound it was for me.
Wow.
That life-changing for me.
Really?
Yeah, I was, like I said, I was struggling with that stuff, integration, and I had a friend here that went through, told me about it, and I decided, hey, I gotta save my life. I gave that guy a call, and he said, hey, are you ready to be open and vulnerable and willing? I was like, yes, I'm ready.
Awesome.
And, he's like, okay, we've got some ruthless compassion for you, and that's
wow. I love that.
yeah.
Wow, interesting.
He's like, I'll give you some ruthless compassion. I'll never lie to you, right? And they do an amazing job with what they do. They use sort of the model of the Joseph Campbell's monomyth, right? Hero with 1,000 faces.
Okay.
So separation, integration, or separation, integration, return. You return back to society with what you've learned.
Very much of what we were talking about earlier in terms of the labyrinth and.
That's right.
And is this a lot of talk-based stuff or different modalities or?
So they used to do equine up there. They do sometimes. I think they do some ropes courses.
Okay.
They've got a guy, Brad Gallup. He's their equine specialist.
Really? Brad Gallup, equine specialist.
Yeah. Uncle Brad. He's a good dude.
How appropriate. That's awesome.
Yeah.
But so they there's a lot of listening.
Okay.
And they minimize the amount of talking that we will do with each other.
Okay.
Versus like we're sitting here and you're up on a stage and you're talking to us.
Okay.
So it's very like individual focused, and that way they stay on target, right?
Okay.
Because we don't want to be fixing other people, right?
Yeah.
You're there for yourself.
You're an NCO. You want to do that.
Absolutely.
Right. This guy's fucked up. I want to help him.
Because I want to avoid dealing with my own stuff.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah,
I'd rather fix you than fix me.
Feeling
right?
personally attacked, but okay.
No, I mean, that's from my experience, right? That's how I have it.
Same.
But I'll tell you, like, it was a great organization. I'm still tied in with them. Like I do work with them.
So they do some continuing support as well?
Yes.
That's excellent. And now you're helping them also.
Absolutely.
As an alumni.
As an alumni, yeah.
Yeah.
So I work with guys getting ready to go.
That's awesome.
Not in an official military capacity, obviously.
Right.
Yeah.
But just, personally.
No, but it's a great testament of what you're talking about, that unfortunately there are a lot of programs out there, or fortunately or unfortunately, but I'm saying there are a lot of programs out there, but unfortunately they don't get all heard about because there's not this type of platform to bring them forward. So some of them don't get the opportunity to really come out of the limelight. And I had not heard of this one. I hear about a lot of nonprofits, and what I'll do, Jeromy, is get the information from you so that we can at least put that within the show notes for those who may be interested, because I'm sure that somebody's going to hear this and hear your story and go, all right, how do I find out more? I mean, if Jeromy had that kind of success, I want to experience that as well.
I've got a stat for you.
Okay.
1,900 alumni, 9 suicides.
Wow.
For a suicide prevention program,
That's huge.
That's pretty good.
No, that's huge.
So
Yeah.
And honest. That's the other thing. It's honest. It's
Yeah.
a real statistic. I mean, there's some organizations out there, and they're very ambitious in their goals. Like, this is going to be, we're going to end it, and it's never going to happen again. And it's like, that's not not realistic, but
Right.
you can definitely make a change. That's very interesting. And how long is it's Save a Warrior project?
Yeah. Save a Warrior project.
How long is it always the same amount of time you go for?
4 days.
4 days. Okay.
4 days.
And could you go back? Is it that kind of program, or do you think it would be?
You could. They've had people go back.
Okay.
It's interesting. He says, people call me and they don't do the work, the 500 days after work.
Oh, okay.
You don't do the work, right? And he's like, the first thing I'm going to ask you is, did you meditate?
Yeah.
Don't call me until you meditated. I don't even want to talk to you. Right?
Nice.
You better not be drunk or anything like that. Like, you better have meditated. You're going to meditate and then call me, right? Yeah. And that's a big part of it, right? Is like the meditation piece, because being present, it helps. Yeah.
Okay. That's awesome. It sounds a lot different than most of the programs I've heard of or interacted with or what have you. Sounds like there's some different angles to it. So that's encouraging. I always like when there's another option, because
Well, it's like you said.
One size fits all.
I was just getting ready to say the same thing. Yeah, it's like you were talking about earlier. You went through 7 therapists before you found the right one, and it's, for some people they get lucky on the first. For some, they never keep going back. But what you're talking about is so important that I hear often through some of these nonprofits is that you have to put in the post work. You have to put in the work. It's not like you're going to go there and give the silver pill or the bullet and stuff and say, here you go, this is it. All you got to do is take this pill. Gone. You're good. It's a work in progress.
Yeah, you'll be great for about 2 weeks, and then it wears off, right?
Yeah.
And now you're just back to being raggedy you. No, you got to do the work every day. You've got to stay invested in yourself, right? And why? For who, right? What's your purpose? And for me, like, it's my family and my career. If I'm not working on myself, I can't be of service to the people that I work with. And I definitely can't support my family in the way that I need.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it helps you, I'm sure, understand that the 4 people are still one.
That's right.
It's still the same person.
That's right.
Standing or sitting here before us. And and some of us, we go through life and we don't even recognize that there are multi pieces. There are a number of different pieces of us, because we've never been in a situation where that's been kind of ripped apart. And so that you gotta fix that tear, and put it back together again for normalcy. But that's where I think, we've talked about on this episode or on this podcast that sometimes it's a new normal, and you've got to get comfortable in your own skin once again.
That's right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And your family. And it's a hard transition for everybody around you.
Yeah.
It's extremely hard. I mean, you build a persona through your service.
Right.
And it's funny how much you can take that persona in your resume and confuse that with who you really are.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not an Army Ranger. I'm not a sniper. I'm not whatever the hell I was in the military. I just did that.
Yeah.
And now I can do something else. And I wasn't that before. I was something completely different. But it's, it's easy to say that. It's hard to integrate that into a
That's
daily
right.
thing and feel good about it. Let me ask you this question, because I think it's so easy to get discouraged. And I think so many people, they take that first step and then the results are just jarringly disappointing. So I mean, you get a bad my first therapist, after I realized that, maybe going overseas and doing the things I did, I need to talk to somebody about, she fell asleep, man. I was like, she must have had a rough day. I've fallen asleep at work. I'm a Ranger. We'd sleep anywhere we can. So I went back again, and she fell asleep again. And I was like, okay, I'm telling war stories, and she's falling asleep. And I know these are exciting war stories, shoot. And it was extremely discouraging, but I was in a place where I'm going to lose my career. I'm going to lose the people I care about, and, probably lose my life too, through risk-taking behavior, at a minimum. So I kept going, and I found some good people. But if you had gone to this program and you had come away and you felt like it was ineffective, or you felt like you were disappointed with the results, would you try another program?
Yeah.
A different modality?
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, at that point in my life, I realized, and I think if I'd have gone 5 years before, maybe it wouldn't have worked. Right. Because when I made the decision to go, like I was, okay, I'm trying to save my life, right? I have to do something to save my life. That's where I was in my path, right? 5 years ago, maybe I wasn't there. And to your point earlier, right? Like my son, and that's part of it too, is like my son doesn't need me to be an Army Ranger right now, you know? Like I don't need to be an Army Ranger in my kitchen. Yeah. And that's what I was doing, right? And nobody wants to be that guy, right? You want to go home and like be an RI to your family, right? I'm knife handing people, you know?
There's some of them out there.
I mean, that's true.
There's some of them out there.
That's true.
But no, I agree with you. Most people.
Yeah, what I appreciate about this and you bringing that forward is that, in talking about this subject at least, is that one of the people that made, I think, in hearing your story and knowing you for the last 6 years, is that someone who made a profound statement that really helped you was the first sergeant who came forward and maybe share that again for those who haven't heard. And of course, Jeromy hasn't heard this.
First Sergeant Anderson, who, to give you some background, this guy was when you think of old school high and tight Ranger, that was just balls to the wall, like rip doesn't stop when you graduate Ranger. That was him. He was just such a hard ass, great leader, I think, and very, very competent, but hard. I mean, the guy's made of woodpecker lips, and he's insane, completely insane. You know, I mean, when he was a weapons squad leader, he'd make his guys, like his new guys, is like, you're getting a tattoo of our squad logo or something like that. I mean, that's a story I heard. I don't know if that's true. So in case he gets in trouble for that, that's not my fault. But you know, that's who he is, and just hard and impenetrable kind of guy that you just want to say, Roger, first sergeant, get the fuck out of the blast zone. And we came back from a deployment. We'd been back for I think a couple weeks or maybe a month. We were back from block leave, and he's got the whole HHC in formation, and he's like, gentlemen, this is it. And he just lays it out. He's like, I'm an alcoholic. He's like, my children are feral. My marriage is failing. My wife's going to leave me because I'm a fucking maniac. He's like, and all these things. He's like, I'm not going to make it. He's like, and my body's trash. You know, I'm living on, you know, whatever the medic can give me, and I can still do my job. You know, and he's, you know, full of pins and rods now. But he said, you know, I'm seeking counseling, and you guys can seek counseling and all of this. And I'm like, holy smokes. If this guy needs it, I need it, because he's so freaking tough. And I'm like, maybe this close, or this much of that toughness. He's a little tiny iota of that. And if he's willing to say it and go out and do it, like, then I need to too. Because like you said, you know, you want to do right. You want these young people to be mentored by you. I'm like, okay, you know, I'm going to follow your example, because just like the badges on if I want those badges on your chest, on my chest, if I want that rank that you have on my chest, if I want your position, I got to do what you do. And this is going to be part of it. And that gave me the impetus to do it. I think it saved my life, honestly, because that was the first step to seeking mental health services. It was the first step to just admitting that, you know, I knew I was fucked up. You know, because you do 6 Ranger deployments, you know, you're like, yeah, you were fucked up. But I thought that was okay. I thought, you know, you're so indoctrinated, it's like, it's fine. I will be the Ranger in the kitchen, knife hand in the toaster when it doesn't pop when I think it should, or you know, screaming and yelling at my kids for their whatever it may be. Because it works over there, and that's super hard, so it might as well work over here where it's super easy. But that was so profound and powerful to me. I mean, it stuck with me for a really long time.
I only brought that up because I hope that, and you may already understand this, Jeromy, but you're putting one foot in front of the other, and we all do that every day. And I mean, I've dealt with situations and stuff in the past, non-combat related, but can totally relate to a lot of the situations that we're talking about here. And you just continue to put one foot in front of the other, but you also have to understand, you know, those who are listening that may be in the situation that you're casting a shadow. And so what are the people seeing? What actions are you taking? Are you coming forward and you're trying to represent that you're not any less of a man for doing that? As a matter of fact, you're a better man to your family, to your children, to this unit, to your, and that's what's important at the end of the day, that you're going to take care of yourself, because that's what's the main thing. And I think because of your experiences, it'll help you be even that much greater of a leader, I guess is what I'm trying to say, in turning that around in a different way.
Absolutely. Right. Like I said, I'm far better than I was before. And understanding like we've got to be vulnerable as leaders, right? I don't have to be, this whatever image that I'm supposed to be. Like I could just be me, right? And like, hey, this is my experience, right? This is where I derive my strength from. Like you guys also are going to have these same experiences. There's no reason, like the fact that Sergeant First Classes or senior leaders in the Army, it's a meme. Go on like U.S. Army WTF, and it's like the meme of the Sergeant First Class who's an alcoholic with like 4. Like they know, right? It's not a secret. Right? So like,
we know,
dude, just go out there and tell your soldiers like, hey, I'm messed up, I'm getting help, and it's gonna be fine. They already know. People know. I can tell, right? We can tell when you're serving with somebody, like something's going on. Right?
But respect, then like in the case of Paul, and I think you're absolutely right, and that's a message. I think that if there's one thing that within the military and the good that's being happened, like what happened here, and the reaction and those types of things, is that you're not only taking care of the soldiers, you're taking care of yourself, and you're willing to come forward and say, "We're here. We're here as a community. We're here as a unit. I'm here for you. I've been there, and seek help, get help."
And it makes it, you've heard this before. There's the, hey, call me if you ever need, here's my phone, everybody take my phone number and call me if you ever need. Okay.
Right.
But when you're that guy, it's like, hey, like I know, right? I have people call me all the time. People call me because I'm open about it. And they're just like, hey, man, I think I'm kind of going through some stuff. It's like, let's do it right now. I get better by listening to your experience. It helps me immensely to help to listen to other people's experiences, to share my own. It gives me so much from helping others.
Well, without you probably even knowing it, you've just done the same thing here during this episode. And we've had many times where individuals have listened to episodes in this type of setting and conversation in which they come back and say, hey, it literally saved my life. So it's amazing, this platform and what we're able to do. And thank you for sharing your story and that journey. And man, I wish you nothing but the best in Hawaii. Man, it's strange even having to say that because that's a tough assignment.
It's real tough.
Yeah,
no, it is, dude. It is. When you're out in the field there, that is brutal.
What's great is now we have 2 first sergeants that are going to be phoning us to come to 25th ID to do some podcasting.
Rob, let's do it. Let's space A over there and just do it.
Don't forget about the little people when you leave.
Yep. No, absolutely.
Thank you so much again. Appreciate it, man. Really do.
Thanks, guys. A lot of fun. Appreciate the opportunity.
Oh, it's great, man. Right. I wish we could do this for another 2 hours. Freaking great, dude.